gonna get going, everybody. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please, sir.
Mr. Arcuri?
Here.
Mr. Boga?
Here.
Mr. Brodsky?
Here.
Mr. Coyne? Mr. D'Elia?
Here.
Mark Ford?
Here.
Mitch Ford?
Here.
Mr. Kane?
Here.
Mr. Mahardy? Mr. Mottola?
Here.
Ms. Sesney? And Mr. Lynn? Okay.
Thank you. You have the draft January 25, 2016 minutes in your packet. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second? Any additions, corrections, deletions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. Since there are only 8 of us here this evening, I'm going to defer the election of officers to that next month to give those other members the opportunity to be here.
I wanted to vote for you at my last meeting.
Why do you know it's your last meeting?
Sure it will be.
You're sure it will be?
Yes.
Thank you. We got a little bit of stuff.
I guess the question is,
Are you going to be here next month?
no,
All right, so we're going to lose people all over the
but
place.
I guess the question would be, I mean, do the same people want it? I mean, probably I'll vote for him anyway, but maybe somebody wants out, I don't know.
I didn't hear from anybody that indicated that.
I don't.
Why don't we just get it over with? How many people are we missing tonight? 4.
But we're going to miss 2 next month already.
Why don't we
guess
just
it's not
vote on
gonna
it
happen.
tonight?
Somebody cares to make a motion, or is there
Make a-
somebody else interested? Now's the time to speak up. Yes, Mitch?
It's like a marriage.
I make a motion that we vote on the slate of officers tonight. Chairman.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion regarding this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you, and thank you. Next item, is this you, Dick?
Yes, the next 2 actually.
Establishing the MVWA as lead agency.
Right, the resolutions under agenda items 5 and 6 are related to the new pipe bridge up at the water treatment plant. At last month's meeting, the board approved us sending out the initial environmental information to any involved agencies, along with a letter that stated your intention to assume lead agency status, as long as no other agencies had an issue with it. We did hear back in writing from the 3 involved agencies that you are clear to establish the MVWA as lead agency for making the determination under the next resolution, which is a negative declaration on the project. So the first one, agenda item 5, is to establish the MVWA as lead agency for the review.
Any questions for Dick regarding this? Someone inclined, Bruce, the resolution as presented? Second? Frank? Any further comments, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you.
Okay, the next item is the negative declaration for the project. Both our environmental counsel, Wendy Marsh at Hancock and Estabrook, and I've worked on that. And for the reasons noted in the resolution, we feel that it's a negative declaration is justified. That is also sent out to all the agencies, both involved that have an approval responsibility and those that are interested. For instance, the town of Trenton and Russia up there would get that for their information.
Any questions for Dick regarding this resolution?
I do have a question. Because I'm new, what is a negative declaration?
Under the State Environmental Quality Review Act, negative declaration is a statement the agency makes and then sends out to the other agencies that basically says they've taken a look at the required environmental issues on the project and social economic issues. There's a form, environmental assessment form that's filled out, that's sent out to the agencies. They've had a chance to comment on it. none of them did. So basically, we've done a comprehensive review. Based on that, then our attorney looks at the rest of the seeker regulations, making sure that we've hit all the parameters, and then basically prepares the negative deck, confirming that there is no adverse environmental.
No problems.
No. Yep.
I think if you look at number 2 on the third page, A and B
Yep.
lays it out about as clear as you can find any secret.
In 4 paragraphs.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? Anybody opposed? We did move that, right?
No.
Is there a second? All those in favor? Anybody opposed? I thought I might have missed that. Maybe we should have a re-election, I'm not sure, I'm losing it already. Committee reports, do you have anything for us, John?
Just in your packet or your binder is the first month of the new calendar year. Consumption is actually up, which is good, and billings are up. Cash collection is higher than prior year. We tend to start off slow and collect more as months go by. So everything looks positive overall. Auditors will be coming in 3 weeks to audit the books of the previous year. So we're working on that.
Any questions for Jim? Thanks, Jim. Pat?
At the request of the chairman, but also I think it's a good idea on my own as well. I just wanted to take a minute and kind of review the state audit that was done by the Controller's Office, particularly now since it was on TV. There's been some editorial review by the Observer Dispatch. So I just want to take a few minutes to kind of walk you through it, but also anyone that might be watching on TV from home, just to kind of let them know really what kind of happened here. The first thing I think that's important to remember is that when the auditor came in last summer, she began to look at our entire operation. So she spent the first 2 or 3 weeks with Jim in the accounting department, looked at our payroll records, our accounts payables, receivables, ledger entries, our inventory control processes, a whole range of things. And essentially what they do from the Controller's Office is they'll look at the entire organization, they'll probe it for weaknesses, look at certain areas, and then move on to something else if they don't find anything. When she got done doing this for almost a month, the comment was made to us that essentially everything looked fine, and if it was up to her, she'd write us a one-page letter just saying, keep doing a good job. But she also then said, unfortunately, my supervisors don't really operate that way, so I'm sure they're going to have you want to come back and look at something else. So it was about 2 weeks later that she called up and said, I'm coming back in and I need to meet with your engineers, and they want me to look at water losses through your system. So when the report finally came out, it started out by stating the purpose of this examination was to look at water losses. Well, in the end, that's what it ended up being, but what was missed in the whole process was that she did an awful lot of work reviewing the entire agency and found everything to be in good order, which I think is a credit to all of our departments and hardworking people here. But when it comes to the leakage, the 43% number, there's a couple things I just want to make sure that we all understand, which is one, it was no surprise to us. We've certainly known that the system leaks quite a bit. You may also recall, some of you that have been here a number of years, is that when we do our comprehensive annual financial report that's put together by Jim and his department, we actually received awards for that report 5 or 6 times now, running over the last 10 years. It was like every year in a row for almost a decade. Awards granted by the Government Finance Officers Association for not only its completeness, but also its transparency. And we talk in there about water losses. We've never tried to hide this from anybody. We've been very upfront about it. The other thing I want to also point out is that because of the time period she looked at, which was January 2014, all the way through the end of June in 2015, it included 2 winters. So when you're looking at an 18-month period that has 2 winters built into it, you're going to see that that rate might be a little higher than if you took the different slice of time, just because we get a lot more breaks in the wintertime than we do in the summertime. And as you may recall, last winter at this time in February, we had pretty much a record cold February month. I I think it was the coldest record in February, on record, or maybe the second coldest, but we went for, I don't know, 31 days or something where we went below zero. We were getting 4, 5, 6 water main breaks a day, and certainly we lose a lot of water through that. But I think the critical thing is that the system is very old. We know that. It's, in some cases, we have piping that exceeds 150 years old, but an awful lot of it's over 100 years old. And no matter what we do technology-wise to find leaks faster, record them, measure them more accurately, et cetera, we have an awful lot of new technologies that are allowing us to do all these things, and the engineering department, led by Dick, is doing a great job at accounting for the water. But none of that stuff is actually going to stop the water mains from breaking in this kind of weather. And so the only way you really prevent the water main breaks is to begin either replacing outright water mains or rehabilitating water mains by digging up sections and cleaning and lining the inside, which is also very expensive. Not as expensive as outright replacement, but it comes down to the fact that with over 700 miles of pipe in a system and 665 miles of distribution mains, in order to make a real serious dent in the leakage loss, you're talking about replacing hundreds of miles of pipes. And to do that would cost hundreds of millions of dollars. It's roughly $1 million a mile, $960,000 a mile. And so to do that kind of work, unless the state or the federal government wants to drop $200 million in our laps to go out and change 200 miles of pipe, we're not going to see that leakage rate come down real significantly. The best we can do is keep up with it, keep replacing, and really it comes down to public policy that we set right here in this room with all of you folks, which is finding that right balance between what can this community really afford versus what's reasonable and prudent for maintenance, keeping the system operating for future generations, et cetera. That's a tough balancing act. We could go out and double water rates, triple water rates to start generating that money, and it would still take decades to get all these pipes replaced out. So I think the bottom line is that we're doing the best we can. There is no magic bullet. And the other thing that's important to realize is that this system is no different than any other urban center across upstate New York and throughout New England for that matter. If you look at Albany, Syracuse, the city of Rochester, for example, Buffalo, they have similar situations with their pipes, similar age, similar leakage, similar weather. And the whole basis of saying that our leakage rate is too high is based on a goal that's set by the federal EPA that says it shouldn't exceed 10%. Well, if you're down south and you're in Florida or Texas where you don't get frost, and you're in the suburbs where all your pipes are 25 or 30 years old because it's a growing community, that's probably a pretty good target rate. But it's totally unrealistic for where we are here without bankrupting this community. So I think people should understand that we're doing a pretty darn good job keeping up with it, finding the leaks as fast as we can, and keeping the system as reliable as we can. $55 million we spent in capital improvements since we took over the system. Granted, some of that's gone to building new tanks, which are also needed, but a lot of that work has been put right in the ground with water mains, and obviously we're going to continue to do that at whatever level everybody here agrees the community can afford to do. So I just wanted to take a minute and clear that up and let folks at home especially know that we're really doing a pretty darn good job here, I think, and it's a tribute to everybody and the board for supporting what we say we need. So if they have any questions or additional comments, I'd certainly be happy to hear them. Otherwise, we do have one more matter that we'll reserve to executive session that we want to inform the board about.
So what does the audit really tell us? I mean, that we didn't know. I mean, they just wanted to
Nothing
put
really.
something in the audit and...
Well, what's interesting is the audit essentially said that we are doing all the things that are reasonable and prudent to be doing. We're employing new technologies for leak detection. We're changing meters to more accurately record where the water's going. We're finding the leaks as fast as we can and fixing them in a reasonable amount of time. And their only recommendation was to keep doing what you're doing. So it wasn't so much criticism as it was just really
And
making
that
the
our
public...
finances are in order.
Yeah, well,
It's
yeah.
no minor little thing.
Exactly. They didn't come in and say that we're on the brink of bankruptcy or, that who knows what. I mean, some of these things you read, every week the controller releases audits from all around the state. And some of the things that I see going on in other municipalities are really pretty outrageous. And, I think what the public needs to know is that this is a well-run organization and we function pretty well, and I think we do. We run a tight ship here. We we try to spend public's money as wisely as we can and as carefully as we can. So, yeah, back to your point, Rocco. They didn't tell us we were doing anything wrong. They simply said, keep doing what you're doing, and by the way, if there's a way to make it better, then you should try to make it better. Of course, we all know that.
And we appreciate that advice.
Yes, we do. Yes, we
They
do.
raise their hand, of course, you can do it.
We take it to heart.
Anything else, Pat?
No, as I said, there's one other issue we'll reserve for executive session.
Any questions for Pat?
I think you did a good job on the audit. That was pleased.
I do too. Any old business? Any new business?
We do have one, oh, sorry.
Yeah, I don't know if this runs under old business or new business, but we talked a while ago, in the light of the spill, maybe you guys took this up at the last meeting.
Mhm.
I suggested that the fluoride people, who are anti-fluoride people, were
Mhm.
coming down to the council meetings.
Mhm.
And I suggested that we need to
Get down there.
get down there.
Right, and Phil and I have talked about doing that, so.
And I really,
we're gonna schedule it.
especially after the spill now, it's coming up again.
It is.
I really think we need to get some education down there,
Yeah.
at least to the council members.
I gotta say too, I don't wanna criticize any of our local TV stations, but I was asked about that on camera in my office, and provided what I thought was some pretty good information, and I was a little disappointed when I saw on the news that night that they used about 10 seconds of it. But I did, on one of the live radio shows in the morning, got into it in depth, but I already mentioned to Phil that we need to be making a house call downstairs and talk directly to the council. I've done some research, I have a lot of information, I just need to get it all together, and then we're gonna call the city clerk's office and try to get on the agenda.
And I think they're going to make some presentations at the county
Oh, really?
bench also.
Okay, well,
So
that'll
just a
be our
heads
next
up.
step. That'll be our next step, I appreciate it.
Okay.
The other item under new business is actually ties back somewhat to the incident at the plant. We have, within our capital improvement program, we've had some planned improvements at the water treatment plant within the program that are currently funded. But in light of what happened up there, and in light of the fact that we are still in midstream in an application process with the DEC for what we affectionately call the Speedies permit, which I don't know what the S is for, but it's something to do with discharging into the environment.
State pollution discharge elimination system.
That's it, thank you very much. I gotta memorize that someday. But essentially, when the plant is operating day in and day out, we have to backwash the filter beds, just like you do with a pool. And when we backwash it, that all goes downhill underneath behind the plant to our sludge lagoons, where it settles, it decants. Some of that water gets released to the environment, the sludge stays behind, we clear it out periodically. But in light of the chemical spill and the fact that some of that made it down to the sludge lagoons, we knew that there were some containment issues that were coming up, and were going to be addressed in the process of renewing the Speedies permit with the DEC. And these are things that have been on deck, but we've chosen now, because of the spill and the fact that we still have the Speedies permit open with the DEC mid-process, some of this work we really need to do now rather than later, but, and Dick and Phil are here to give you the details on that, but there's some engineering design work that needs to be done to improve the containment areas. The DEC is going to want to see that in light of the permit that we're trying to renew. So at this point, I would just ask Dick or Phil to fill you in on the rest of it. But we did get, just this morning, as a matter of fact, which is why you didn't get this last week and it wasn't on the agenda, the engineering proposal just came in about 11 o'clock this morning via email from GHD Engineering, which is the firm that we've been using as the consultant for the Speedies permit renewal and some of the work that's already been planned at the treatment plant. So,
Yeah, I'll
Dick, do you want to elaborate?
The containment and the unloading station. Basically, our tanks have a containment area. It's basically the above-ground tanks within the plant or within dikes. Those dikes, we feel, should be enlarged, and some improvements. The plant's about 20, 25 years old, and so we need to seal some areas and regrout some of that. So there's some expansion of dikes, modification of dikes. We also have an unloading area where our bulk chemicals come in and are basically pumped into the various tanks in the plant. If there's a spill there, there's a catchment area and a large underground vessel. We're going to be modifying and enlarging that to work a little bit more efficiently. So that's kind of the concrete and the mechanical improvements that we're looking at, and most of that, or all of it, occurs within or adjacent to the plant. Some of the lagoon improvements we're talking about are the lagoons which are 600 feet away, 800 feet away, something
Yeah,
like that.
and, you know, it's a good time to take a look at the characteristics of those lagoons and make some decisions about, you know, where that sludge and where that decant water is gonna go and how long it should be retained on site. So part of this is to make an assessment of the lagoons and to characterize the sludge that's in there.
How much?
It's,
71.
the total for the design work is $71,500, which, as we said, is work that was gonna be planned for later.
Yeah.
It's covered in the current capital improvement program. We had $190,000
Between this
accumulated.
current year and some money we budgeted last year, because we
Right.
actually started taking an early look at it before any of this occurred. So we have 190,000, most of that is still available
About
for this
three
project.
quarters of the way down is the breakout of the design work. So, yeah, as we said, within the context of the capital improvement program, we had $190,000 geared towards this work and some additional work. But the cost of this is covered. We just decided that this is probably something we ought to do sooner rather than a little bit later, in order to help get this speedies permit renewal process done, because DEC is coming in with some recommendations on some improvements that they want to see done. So our request, the proposal is that we get this contract awarded now rather than, you know, a little bit down the road, 6 or 8 months from now as we had planned. And again, it's GHD Engineering who's already under contract with us to be doing a lot of this design work. Yes, sir?
How long does your DEC permit? How long is it good for?
How often does it?
The permit actually expired in 2010.
Yeah.
But we're going through the renewal process now, and that's set on DEC's timeline. So,
How long will it last?
how long will, it's a 5-year permit.
This is just design.
Anything else?
And by the way, we should add that the actual construction costs for this work are fairly minimal.
Yeah, there's not a lot of concrete and that kind of work involved within the plant. The work down at the lagoons may involve some control structures and some bulkheading, but again, we feel there's enough there to cover that. And once the design is done, then we'll have a much better handle on what those costs are. We run that back to the capital committee as we usually do, so.
Anybody have any comments or concerns?
And the rationale for sole source?
Well, GHD, about 5 years ago, was the firm that was selected under a quality-based selection to perform a 20-year improvement plan at the plant. It was the 20-year checkup and what did we do. So they had the most familiarity with the plant facilities, including the sludge and sludge handling, which is a very expensive proposition for us every year. They actually spent quite a bit of focus on that. So it just made sense to move them right into these tasks.
And they're in the middle of the permit process.
Yeah, they're helping us with the permit process, too.
With DEC, where GHD was actually there as our representative at the table, along with Wendy Marshall, Hancock, but GHD has actually been preparing the reports that the DEC is looking for on the permit renewal. And as the DEC came back with recommendations on all these things, it was actually GHD that was formulating, you know, how to respond to DEC and digest it. So it seemed like a fairly natural fit, considering that they already had come up to speed on this. And another firm would have to come in and, you know, kind of duplicate the study work that GHD has already done.
Anything new on the insurance coverage, cost beyond insurance related to the spill?
We don't have those numbers yet, so right now we don't have it. We have a claim filed, the insurance carrier's on notice, but we haven't received any of the costs yet for the cleanup or potentially a bill from the hazmat team. So we haven't actually filed the claim yet. We do have a meeting Thursday? Thursday, as a wrap-up with emergency management. It's an after-event kind of after-action event report. So once we have that, we may get the bill from the hazmat team, and then we're waiting for the cleanup company to bill us, and then it'll all get filed with the insurance company.
What's our deductible on that? Do we have
$5,000? $5,000.
Anything else? Someone inclined to move the motion?
Okay, good, second.
Second. Any further discussion regarding this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you. Anything else, Pat? No. We need a motion to go into executive session regarding a personnel matter.
We'll move.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Thank you.